The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everybody, welcome to the 2019 San Mateo Bicycle and Pedestrian Count training webinar. Today's training is expected to take about 15 minutes, and then you're welcome to send any questions that you have to the email that will be provided on the last slide, or give us a call at the phone number on that slide as well. So today I'll provide a brief background about the bicycle and pedestrian count and offer some information on how to prepare for the count, how to conduct the count itself, and then how to submit the results. So this is the 5th year that San Mateo County is participating in the National Bicycle and Pedestrian Documentation Project Count. And the count is a way to document bicycles and pedestrians, and that resulting data is extremely helpful to planners, decision makers, and those that allocate funding in order to guide decisions about sustainable transportation. Each year, with the help of volunteers like yourselves, cyclists and pedestrians are counted at a variety of locations throughout the county. We count on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. and then on Saturday and Sunday from 12 to 2 p.m. And the count sites are based on previous year's locations. Sometimes additional sites are suggested to us, and our ability to integrate these new count locations really depends on volunteer capacity. In other words, whether we have enough volunteers to station somebody at a new suggested location. And I will add that the same count method is used for all of the locations. So here's a map showing the count locations from previous years. The dark red indicates 2018 counts, the light red is 2017, and the gray is 2016. And this map is offered on the Office of Sustainability's Active Transportation website in an interactive format if you'd like to look at it a little closer. If you click on each of the dots, then it'll give you the date and the location and the weather associated with each of the counts. So circles with more than one color indicate that the site was counted over multiple years, which allows us to do that year-over-year comparison. And as you can see from the map, the locations are fairly well dispersed throughout the county, and each year we try to ensure that most jurisdictions have at least one location where data is counted. All right, so moving on to preparation for the count. So we will be sending emails to you shortly with your assigned count location, which is based off of the information that you provided to us through the registration link. That same email will have additional details regarding preparation for the count, which I will summarize in the following slides today. But in that email, you'll also have the reminder on how to prepare for the count. So if you have questions about your location or locations plural or how to get there, feel free to reply to that same email and we can provide further details. You will need to print the forms that are attached to the email or pick them up from the Office of Sustainability. And when I say forms, I'm referring to the count forms. And these are really crucial for the day of, for tallying the counts. In our experience, it's much easier to tally them on that form than recording on a laptop or on a phone. So in terms of what to bring to the count, make sure that you bring those printed count forms. Sometimes people find it useful to have some scratch paper to do separate tallies. You may wish to look at the intersection on Google Street View beforehand to see if there are any benches or what the best place for you to situate yourself in the intersection might be. Please do bring something to record the tallies with, a pen or a pencil and a spare, as well as a phone or a watch or some kind of device to help you keep time, given that the count occurs over 2 hours, but it's split up into 15-minute intervals. And then, of course, bring water, snacks, hat, sunscreen, whatever you need to be comfortable on the day of. We ask that you arrive about 10 minutes early for your shift in order to find a comfortable location so that you can see the entire intersection. And because the count starts at the top of the hour, So it'll start right at 7 a.m. And it's nice to have a couple of minutes to set up. If you do arrive later than the start time, please just note that on your count form so that we're aware that the count didn't occur over the entire 2-hour period. So we also ask that you count the entire duration of that 2-hour period while keeping track of those 50-minute time intervals. But we recognize that there may be instances where you need to take a break. So if you take a break, please try to do that within one of those 15-minute intervals and just record that on the count form so that we know that counts weren't being recorded during that time period. And please remember that your safety is really the most important thing here. So we ask that you prioritize that, and that if you ever feel uncomfortable or unsafe, or like you're obstructing bicycle or pedestrian traffic, then it's completely fine for you to abandon your count if you feel unsafe. All right, so moving on to what to count on the day of your count. So primarily you will see cyclists and pedestrians, and those are the two main things that we count. And according to the National Bicycle and Pedestrian Count methodology, a cyclist is a cyclist. I don't know if that needs more clarification. Pedestrians, on the other hand, could be runners, somebody walking their bike through the intersection, somebody walking a stroller, or someone using an assistive device such as a wheelchair. Then we have this third category called other that includes other personal mobility devices such as scooters, skateboards, rollerblades, and things of that nature. I will mention that electric bicycles or e-bikes are considered bicycles according to our methodology. So in these 4 photos, on the top left-hand corner, we have somebody on a scooter, so that would be considered other. Top right, in the background, it looks like we've got a bicyclist, and in the foreground, somebody on a skateboard, which again would be considered that other category. On the bottom left is a gentleman riding a bicycle, so he'd be considered a cyclist. And then the bottom right is a pedestrian, being the adult, and the child might be considered a cyclist, or it could be the other category. That's sort of up for debate, and we do ask that you just use your discretion and make your best guess as to how to classify individuals moving through the intersection. So I'll go through a couple of examples here. This is 2 people on 1 bicycle. We would count that as 2 cyclists according to the methodology. And the key thing to remember here is that we're counting people rather than devices. So similarly, in this example, we've got, I guess, 5 people on sort of 1.5 bicycles. And again, we would count that as 5 people rather than 1 person or 2 people, because it's sort of 2 devices there. It's probably pretty rare that you'll see something like this, but I hope that you do, because that would be very exciting. And moving on to a third example, the individual that's rollerblading would be considered that other category, and then in the foreground, you've got a couple of pedestrians. All right, so here's what, on the right-hand side here, what the count form looks like. And you'll need to print this count form, as I mentioned earlier. So please make sure to fill out your name, just like in school, as well as the location where you're counting, which is the intersection, the date, time, and the weather. And you can be pretty general with the weather. For example, recording it as sunny or fair or cold or rainy. And as was mentioned previously, we record the counts in 15-minute intervals. So you'll have 8 15-minute intervals over the 2-hour time period. So it'll be a double-sided sheet or 2 single-sided sheets that you'll be recording on. You'll start in that upper left-hand corner where it says 0 to 15, and then move to the right, 15 to 30, and 30 to 45, and so on and so forth. And we record the counts in these 15-minute time periods because it allows us to see how the count changes over the 2-hour time period. We ask that you label on at least one of those quadrants, or at least one of those 8 intersection drawings, label the streets so that you can orient yourself and so that we know which streets you're talking about. Sometimes it's helpful to label all 8 of them just so that you can orient yourself as you're recording the counts. So we will be recording or counting every pedestrian, cyclist, and other that moves through the intersection. And crucially, we count in the area that they're coming from or their origin point from the intersection. So for example, here on this slide, the recording shows that there were 4 pedestrians moving south starting in quadrant A in that top quadrant. 5 pedestrians moving north, starting in quadrant C at the bottom, and then 3 bicyclists traveling eastward, starting from quadrant D. So again, you're counting where the person is coming from or where they're entering the intersection, and that's where you record that person. So in other words, if a cyclist, in this example, we're heading southbound from quadrant A and making a right-hand turn to quadrant D, as is shown here, you would count the cyclist in quadrant A. Or I guess that's a pedestrian, actually, that's been recorded in this example. But it could work either way. Okay, so a few more details here. We are not counting people who don't use the public right-of-way or who don't enter the intersection. Public right-of-way means a sidewalk or the street. So private property would be considered, a commercial property or a residence. So in this example, that red dashed line So that red dashed line indicates that somebody could have been moving through a parking lot to get from D to A, and we wouldn't count that on our count sheet. In addition, when somebody crosses the intersection twice in one trip, so for example, if they are walking from D to C and then from C to B, as is shown by the green arrows there, we would count them as that as 2 movements and 2 origin points. Lastly, I will just say not to overthink it. Do your best to count what you think should be counted, and if you miss a few or if a few individuals are counted as other and they should have been cyclists, that's okay. Okay, lastly, how and when to submit your results. So after you're finished with your last shift, if you're doing multiple, we ask that you submit all of the completed sheets within 72 hours of that shift. And in terms of submitting the forms, you could either drop them off at our office, and our address is there on the slide. You are also welcome to mail them to us to that same address, or you're welcome to email the scanned forms or photos of the forms to bipedcountsmc@gmail.com, which is the email address on the slide there. If you have any questions, please feel free to send us an email or give me a call at 650-363-4682. Again, my name is Julia, and I would like to extend a big thank you to all of the volunteers for donating your time to this extremely important effort in the county. Thanks very much.